Are we ready for the jury?
Yes, Your Honor, may I have one moment? We've reached an agreement on something.
Okay. All right, so not quite.
We don't intend to recall Ms. Jacobs, and she is going to, they've granted okay for her to watch.
Very good.
Yeah, we have no objection to that, Your Honor.
Are we ready, State?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, we're ready, please. Very good. Welcome back, members of the jury. State, please call your next witness.
Yes, the state would call Vicky Conrad.
If you'll stand here, face the clerk, and raise your right hand and take the oath.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes.
Ma'am, if you'll step this way, have a seat, pour yourself right to the microphone, and speak in a loud and clear voice for the court, please.
Good afternoon, Ms. Conrad. Will you please state your full name?
Vicky Conrad?
And where do you live? And how long, is that in Pinellas County?
Yes, it is, Clearwater.
Matter of fact, do you live close to the Circle A convenience store?
Yeah, about a block and a half.
And how long have you lived in Pinellas County?
25 years.
And what do you do for a living?
I have vacation rentals.
And how long have you, do you own an inn on Sunset Point
Yes,
Road?
yes, I do.
And how long have you owned and operated that inn?
7 years.
And what did you do prior to getting into the hospitality business?
I was an optometric technician.
So you indicated you live near the store.
Yes.
How often do you go to that store?
Maybe twice a week.
Do you know the employees of that store?
Yes, I do.
Do you know the owner, Ali?
Yes, I do.
What I'd like to do is talk a little bit about July 19th with you. July 19th of last year. Did you, in fact, go to the Circle A convenience store?
Yes,
And how did you get there?
I drove.
And who were you with?
Just myself.
What, as we've seen videos, we're going to see videos, what type of car were you driving that day?
A silver Hyundai Sonata 2013.
Could you tell us, why were you going to the store?
I was going to pick up a bottle of wine.
Could you tell us when you pulled up to the store, did you immediately notice something going on in the parking lot?
Yes, there was an argument between a man and a woman in a car. The woman was in the car, and I just kind of sat there for a minute and just kind of listened to what was going on to see if it was safe to get out.
All right. Could you tell, had you ever seen these people before?
No.
All right, so
No.
let's break it down. There was a female. She white or black?
She was black.
There was a male. Was he white or black?
White.
All right. So a white male and a black female.
Yes.
Where was the black female?
She was sitting in her car.
Where was the white male?
He was outside of her car, about a foot away from the passenger window.
All right, so you could see how far away he was?
Yes,
And about how far would you say he was?
about a foot.
All right. This argument that was going on, was it loud enough for you to hear it?
Yes.
Could you tell us, of those two individuals, the male and the female, who was the louder of the two?
The male.
How did he appear to you?
He was authoritative, kind of, he's argumentative.
All right. Did he appear to be upset?
Yes, yes.
All right. Did you later learn the name of the black female?
Yes, her name was Brittany.
All right. Did you ever know her? Did you ever meet her?
No.
Did you later know the name of the male?
No, no, I didn't know his name.
All right. Had you ever met him before?
No.
All right. Did you later learn his name to be Michael Drejka?
Yes, yes.
All right. But you never met him?
No, no.
Do you recall what type of car she was in?
She was in a white four-door car. I'm not sure what type of car it was, what the make and model was. It was like maybe a Cutlass or maybe something like that. It was a bigger car.
All right. Eventually, did you determine it was okay to go into the store?
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
And did you go into the store?
yes, I did.
When you got into the store, did you, I think Mustafa was working?
Yes.
Did you warn Mustafa about the altercation that was taking place out in the parking lot?
I didn't. Someone else who was coming in the door just as I was told him that there was a problem in the parking lot.
Was it the gentleman that was waiting to
Yes.
testify, Mr. Costelli?
Yes.
All right. So you didn't feel the need to say anything? What did you do when you entered the store?
I went to the back section where the wine is.
All right. When you entered the store, did you notice people inside that store when you first came in?
Yes, there were a few people in there milling about. I didn't pay much attention to them.
Was there a young man and a child?
Yes.
All right. Do you recall where they were? They at the counter?
Yes, I think they were. Yes, they were.
All right. So you went into the store, and where's the wine kept?
When you walk in, if you go to the way back corner on the left, go and make a left all the way down the back corner.
All right. Did you go back there?
Yes.
At some point in time, did you find the need to go to the front of the store?
Yes.
Can you tell us why you went to the front of the store?
I heard Brittany yelling, "Help me, help me, help us. Can
Alright.
someone help us?"
Did you, in fact, see what the issue was?
Yes.
Okay, what did you see?
I saw the victim on the ground bleeding, and he looked like he was dying.
All right. What did you do when you saw that?
I was telling her to compress on the wound, and I got a T-shirt off the rack and gave it to her and trying to get her to compress on the wound.
All right. At this time, Brittany Jacobs was present.
Yes.
Mustafa?
Yes.
And the 5-year-old boy.
Yes.
All right. Did Miss Jacobs attempt to do that? To apply the pressure with the T-shirt?
Trying to, but no, I don't think she really did.
All right. Did there come a time when you eventually, and where did you get this T-shirt?
Off the rack in the store.
All right.
It's all right.
So did you open it and give it to Miss
Yes.
Jacobs? All right. Did there come a time then when you left the store?
Yes.
All right. Why did you leave the store?
She asked me to go check on her kids.
All right. And did you, in fact, were you able to get to the children?
I was able to get to them, but not get unlocked. I could see them, but I couldn't get the door unlocked to the car.
All right, so the car was locked.
Yes.
When you went outside, did you see that white male that had been involved in the argument?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Describe what he was saying or how he was acting.
I looked out the door and I asked him, can I come out and check on the kids? It says very hot and the windows are rolled up, and he said, sure, yes, come on out, everything's fine. They have it on video, I'm just waiting for the police. And then he just very calmly, he stated everything very calm, almost proudly.
All right. After he said that, so you weren't able to get to the kids?
No.
All right. Did you then go back into the store
Yes.
to see about getting the kids?
Yes.
Okay. Eventually, was the car moved?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And when the car was moved, did you go outside?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
tell us about that. So what happened?
I went in, tried to get the keys from Brittany to unlock the car, and I think I didn't get the keys. Everything happened so fast, and I took her 5-year-old with me out of the store and just walked around the parking lot with him, trying to calm him down, and then someone came out and unlocked the car door, and I put him in the car with the other children.
All right, so you were able to reunite him with his brothers
Yes.
and sisters? Brother and sister, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Eventually, did the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office arrive?
Yes.
All right. And when they arrived, did you speak with detectives?
Yes.
Did they take a statement from you?
Yes, they did.
Where did they take that statement?
They're in the parking lot.
When did they take it?
It was maybe an hour after the shooting.
All right, and I,
We waited. They asked us all to wait.
and I guess they tape recorded your statement?
Yes.
And then after that, we met at the state attorney's office?
Yes.
And we talked and had discussed what information you had?
Yes.
May I have a moment, Your Honor? I have no further questions.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
afternoon.
Now, you were going to the convenience store to purchase a bottle of wine, correct?
Yes.
Where were you coming from at that time?
My home.
All right. And when you arrived, was Mr. Drejka and Miss Jacobs already engaged in conversation?
Yes.
All right. So you came up and you already heard some dispute between the
Yes.
two parties. And they were arguing back and forth, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you remember you gave, as Mr. Schaub just pointed out, you gave a statement about an hour, a recorded statement about an hour after the incident, correct?
Yes.
And did you ever see a transcript of that recorded statement?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
don't think so.
Well, today you said that Mr. Drejka was the louder of the two.
Mm-hmm.
You never told the police officer that was investigating that, did you?
I don't think they asked me.
Okay.
I don't think they asked me
So
that
that would be a
question.
yes. You did not tell the investigating
Yes, I didn't
officer.
tell them that.
Okay. In fact, you said that they were arguing back and forth. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Drejka, he was wearing sunglasses, correct?
At that point, his back was to me, so I really couldn't have seen at that point if he had glasses on. I pulled up and he was facing the car, her car, so I saw the back of his head.
Okay, so you didn't see the front of him at that time. Okay, you said he was a good foot away from the window of the vehicle, correct?
About a foot,
So he wasn't hovering or directly up to the vehicle, correct?
Oh, he was close to it. He was close to it.
Well, a foot. It's a
Yes,
foot.
about a foot. To me,
Okay.
that's close.
So you didn't see him actually touch the vehicle, correct?
No,
You didn't see him make contact with Miss Jacobs, correct?
no, I didn't.
Okay. And Miss Jacobs was shouting back at him, correct?
She was arguing back with him to, mind your own business.
Okay. Did she use any curse words?
Not that I can recall. No,
Was it possible?
Objection, Your Honor.
I don't think she said anything. She was just kind of leave me alone,
What about
kind
Mr.
of thing.
Drejka? Was he saying any curse words?
I don't think so.
Okay. So he was upset because she was in a handicapped parking space,
Correct, yes.
Did you hear the conversation, any of the details of the conversation?
I only waited a few seconds. I just kind of observed the situation and then quickly went into the store.
Okay. So that would be a no, you didn't hear any of the details of the conversation?
I didn't sit around and listen, no.
Okay. Now, the vehicle that you observed that the black female was in, Miss Jacobs.
Yes.
That car had tinted windows, do you recall?
Her window was down. I believe the windows were tinted,
Okay.
but hers
And
was down.
you yourself didn't observe any children in the vehicle at that time, correct?
At that time, no.
All right. So you go into the store, you pick up your bottle of wine, I assume?
I didn't get a bottle of wine.
Okay.
It's-
Is the commotion started inside the store at that point?
Yes.
Okay. You indicated that Mr. Castelli, who you later learned was Mr. Castelli, the white male gentleman, had come into the store and made a statement, correct?
Yes,
And he said, hey, you got a problem out here, correct?
yes,
He didn't say there's an altercation, there's a fight, there's an argument. He said, hey, you got a problem out here, correct? Okay, and you distinctly remember that, right?
yes.
And in
yes.
fact, you told the investigating officer on a recorded statement, that very statement, hey, you got a problem out here. Is that
Yes,
correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when that statement was made, what did Mr. McLaughlin do? Didn't he immediately rush out of the store?
I was in the back corner, so I didn't really see that part of it.
Okay. Did you see that he left his 4 or 5-year-old child inside the store?
At that point, no.
All right.
No.
At some point, did you notice that the child was alone in the store?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No, I didn't.
And you didn't see what happened outside the store?
No, I didn't.
You never even heard a shot, correct?
No.
All right. So you don't know what actually occurred with Mr. Drejka and Mr. McLaughlin outside the store. Is
No.
that fair?
At that point, no. No.
Okay. Well, at any point, isn't that
No.
true?
True.
All right. I mean, you may have seen the video later, but
Yes.
you yourself did not eyewitness anything, correct, outside the store?
Yes, correct.
With respect to the shooting? Okay. Now, you said that Mr. Drejka, afterward, you went outside and he seemed very calm.
Yes.
Was he polite?
He's very matter of fact. Very
Okay.
matter of fact.
Well, he wasn't yelling or shouting or angry, correct?
Exactly. No, he's very calm. Very
Okay.
calm.
And I heard you say the word, he almost seemed proud. How do you get proud from calm?
He just was, when
Because
I
he
asked him,
didn't-
I looked out the door and I asked, is it okay if I come out? And he was just very very just, calm and, like, I don't know, it's just the feeling that I got.
And he even made the statement to you, everything's on video, correct?
Correct.
So he knew there were video cameras there, and he knew that that would prove his innocence to you, correct? Did he make that statement to you?
We didn't talk about it. At that point, I hadn't seen anything. I'm only going by assumptions that he was even the shooter. I looked out the door and asked, is it okay that I come out? And he was very calm and very collected about what he was saying.
Okay. Did you notice his shirt was torn?
I didn't notice. I was upset at that point. I mean, there was a man that's dying and a child there. I was upset at that point. I was very distraught at that point.
Okay. Ms. Jacobs, apparently, you noticed that the vehicle had been moved, correct?
Yes.
So the vehicle was in the handicapped spot when you entered the store, and just minutes later when you exited the store after the incident, the vehicle was gone from that spot. Isn't that true?
Yes.
So did you talk to Ms. Jacobs about that? Say, why would you stop to move the car?
No.
Didn't you think that was odd at all, that you would move the car before going into the store?
No, it wasn't a thought that went through my head.
Well, as you sit here today, don't you find that odd that you would move the car before going into the store?
There were children in the car. It might have been trying to get the kids out. I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay, well, the kids didn't come
Her
out, didn't
family
they?
was there. I really didn't know who moved the car. Maybe her parents were there. I know they were there quickly.
Who? Her parents?
Somebody's parents were there. Either the man who had gotten shot or her parents. I'm not sure whose parents, but somebody's family was there quickly.
Okay. Do you know how they arrived, how they were notified?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't.
And you said they were quickly there, like within minutes?
It was after the victim was shot. I know that. After the ambulance had gotten there, or EMTs or whoever. I'm not sure it was an ambulance, but somebody professional was there working on him.
Okay. The children were actually in the vehicle, and you went and aided the children in the vehicle, correct? You checked on
I tried to,
them.
but I couldn't get the car. I couldn't get them to unlock the car door.
Later, were you able to get the car open?
Someone else opened the car door, and I put the little boy in with the other girl, the two girls.
Okay, so you did assist with the children. You knew that they were still in the vehicle, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Where did the vehicle get moved to?
It got moved from the side of the store to the front of the store.
Okay. You asked Miss Jacob for the keys, but she couldn't give them to you?
She was very distraught. This is,
I understand,
horrible
but that's a
time in her
yes or no
life.
response. Did she give you the keys?
no.
Okay. And you said Mr. Drejka was kind of babbling, correct?
No, he was very clear.
You never said babbling?
I don't, not in like a babbling, mumbling kind of way.
I was using the
He
word
was,
that you used in your statement.
I'm sorry.
babbling.
He was very clear.
Okay, well,
Clear.
why would you say an hour after the incident, so he's just kind of babbling?
Can you tell me what page and line you're on?
This is on the transcript of the interview, page 10 of 15.
Can I ask what was I asked?
Well, I
What
can
question
show
was
you your
that?
statement.
Or just what was I asked to, in the beginning, he was, in the argument, to me,
No,
Okay.
this is afterward.
Okay.
You said, yeah, he was babbling. He said they got it all on tape, Come on out.
it was just a term that I used. He was very clear, because babbling can have different meanings to
Wouldn't
me.
you agree that babbling and clear are inconsistent with each other?
It depends
Clear would
on-
imply that he was very coherent, very methodical in his speech. Babbling would imply that he was very stuttering and jittery. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Not really, no. Babbling to me would be going on. He's babbling on. That could be clearly or mumbling. But he
Well,
was
it's
very
your
clear.
term. You use
He was
babbling.
very clear. I meant going on, babbling on, like on and on.
Okay. So
But
he was
what he
clear
said
but
was very
babbling.
clear.
Is that what you're saying today?
He was very clear.
Okay, but he was babbling.
If he was unclear, I wouldn't have gone out of the store.
My question is, you used the word babbling.
She's explained it, Your Honor.
All right. And he did indicate the video again, correct?
Yes.
He kept talking about it, it's all on video, it's all on video.
It's on video.
All right. Now, he was upset because she used the handicap spot, correct?
Yes,
And you knew that from the conversation, correct?
Yes.
You overheard that part?
that's what I overheard, yes.
And she was basically saying, mind your own business. And he was saying, did he explain that he had a family member who was handicapped? Did you hear that part?
Yes,
Okay, so you
Yes.
did hear that portion of the conversation. And he wasn't being threatening, correct? He never said, any threatening words to her, correct?
I would have been threatened if I
That's
was in
not-
my
ma'am,
card.
That's not the question I asked. Not what
Okay.
you would have
He
done.
was being threatening.
And
He wasn't
how
being-
was he being threatening?
He wasn't being physically threatening.
Witness have the opportunity to explain her answer. She
All right,
can.
well, I think she is right now before you interrupted, so.
He was being intimidating. He wasn't being physically but he was being intimidating.
Did he ever, you just raised your fist, did he ever do that?
I was saying he wasn't being intimidating like physically intimidating, but he was being intimidating he was trying to intimidate her.
All right, well,
I
please
believe.
listen
If
to
I
my-
was in a car with my kids and somebody was at my window, I would be a little bit intimidated. I would be intimidated.
Well, we're not asking about
Okay.
what you would be, okay? We're
I can only
asking
go on
what
what I
you
know.
factually observed at the
Sure.
time, not your opinion as to what you observed, what you factually observed. Can you do that?
Well, isn't threatening kind of an opinion, so.
It is an opinion.
All right, so then you're asking her what her opinion is. if
No,
it's
I'm
threatening or
asking
not,
her
right?
what it is that she's made. She already made the statement in front of the jury, so there wasn't an opportunity to object. My question is explain how he was threatening factually. Tell me what facts. You said you showed your fist going up. Did you do
By
that?
approaching a car that it's occupied, and telling somebody to move, and you're not a police officer, you're not, any type of security person, it's threatening, it would be threatening.
Okay, so just merely telling someone that they're in a handicapped space and complaining about it, you view that as threatening?
To go on and on, to continue going on about it, yes,
Okay.
is intimidating.
But you never saw him raise his fist, correct?
No.
You never saw him make any physical contact with the vehicle or Ms. Jacobs,
No, I
correct?
didn't. No, I
You
didn't.
never saw him or overheard him make any verbal communication of a threat. I'm going to shoot you, I'm going to hit
No.
you, I'm going to punch you, I'm going to fight you, anything like that?
I didn't hear that, no.
Okay. Did you hear Ms. Jacobs say, my man's going to come out here and handle you or F you up?
No, I didn't hear that.
Nothing
No.
like that at all?
I don't think no, I didn't hear, I know I didn't hear that.
Okay.
I didn't hear that.
So were you already, at some point you went in the store while they were still continuing this?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes,
Could you hear inside the store?
no,
So inside the store, you couldn't hear any argument?
No.
Nothing at all, correct?
nope.
All right, thank you, no further questions.
Any redirect?
My wife says I babble. So, what's your meaning of the word babble?
To me, go on and on, to go on,
You indicated intimidating.
yes.
He was raising his voice, right?
Yes, his voice was raised,
And he was the louder of the two.
yes.
You have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
I have nothing for
All right, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right, ma'am, you may step down. Thank you.
Eric Forcade.
You'll stand here, face the clerk, raise your right hand, and thank you.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Sir, if you'll step this way, have a seat, pour yourself up to the microphone, and speak in a loud and clear voice for the court, please.
Good afternoon, sir.
How's it going, sir?
State your name, Mark.
Good afternoon. Can you please turn to the jury and state your first and last name and spell them both for the court reporter?
Yes, sir. My name is Eric Forcade, E-R-I-C-F-O-R-C-A-D-E.
And how are you employed, sir?
I am a sergeant with Pinellas County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been employed with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
Going on about 14 years now.
Have you been assigned any specialized units within the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir. For about 4 years, I was also a trainer for the Sheriff's Office. Basically, it was a separate unit of which we have the deputies come in and we teach them all the high liability stuff like firearms, defensive tactics, shooting, stuff like that.
So 15 years total, 4 years in training?
Yes, sir.
Any other units you've been assigned to?
The FTO unit as well.
Okay, when you say FTO, what does FTO stand for?
That's the field training unit.
Okay, and as a member of the field training unit, what were your duties and responsibilities?
We're basically responsible for whenever you have a new hire deputy, they come out with us and they ride with another deputy who then teaches them how to do the job, paperwork-wise, law-wise, how to actually do what they're doing. And then they obviously document their proficiency at doing that. And when they get good enough, we release them to become a solo deputy.
All right, and are there different phases for that?
Yes, sir. There's 4 phases.
All Back on July 19th of 2018, what unit were you assigned to?
I was in Squad 7 as a supervisor. I was logged on as S70 Alpha.
And was that the FTO squad, the field
Yes, sir.
training squad? Okay. In the afternoon hours around between 3:15, 3:30, was there a high priority call?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how are you notified as a member of the sheriff's office that there's a high priority call?
Typically, when we get dispatched to a call, it'll just come out either via our laptops on the CAD system, and they'll just dispatch it out, and they'll have people already assigned to it. Sometimes we'll have it where radio will actually come on and just give us a verbal indication that there's some kind of call out there. And then when we have like really high priority calls, they'll have like an alert tone that goes out, and it's basically like a beeping noise to let everybody know, hey, pay attention, there's now something really big coming out to have a lot of people go to.
Okay, and this particular shooting incident that we're going to talk about, did it have those alert tones?
Yes, sir.
All right, so your attention was drawn to this particular call?
Yes, sir.
Okay, when you heard those alert tones come out, what did you do?
I put on my emergency equipment and automatically assign myself to that call. Basically, you have a couple ways you can get assigned to a call. You can obviously hop on the radio and tell radio, hey, put me on that call, if they're not already dispatched on it. There's also a self-assign button on your laptop computer that, particularly for high priority calls, they don't want to have 20 deputies hopping on the radio, to put me on that call, because now you're tying up the radio where they're trying to give out information. So they have a button that you can push that would self-assign, so you can just hop on it and go.
Okay, and did you do that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Were you one of the first supervisors on scene?
Yes, sir.
Were you alone in your vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what type of vehicle do you have? What did you drive over to that location?
2013 Chevy Tahoe.
And emergency lights on it on the top?
Yes, sir.
All right, probably members of the jury have seen that particular cruiser all around Pinellas County?
Yes, the only difference between my cruiser and a normal cruiser is that it's unmarked. So it's just a plain white cruiser, but obviously it has all of the, again, the emergency package on there with the lights and sirens.
Okay, and you went lights and sirens to the call?
Yes, sir.
All right, and was that call at the Circle A food store?
Yes, sir.
Now, you don't have to know the exact amount of time, but just approximately, how much time did it take you to get from where you were when you heard the alert tones come out to the Circle A store?
When the call originally came out, I was at Sunset Point, US 19, around that area. I traveled directly down Sunset Point to the location of the occurred, and I would guesstimate 3 to 4 minutes max.
Okay. And you indicated again, you were alone.
Yes, sir.
When you pulled into the Circle A parking lot, where did you park your vehicle?
I parked pretty much directly in front of it at a slight angle, pointed off towards the front door area of the store.
Okay, and you're familiar with that store?
Yes, sir.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm going to show you a series of exhibits that we're going to be talking about. At first, I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 9. This is A through D. Do you recognize this series of photographs?
Yes, sir.
All right, and there's obviously 4 photographs on this board.
Yes.
Is this the Circle A food store?
Yes.
All right, the front entrance as well as the parking lot?
Yes, sir.
Do these pictures fairly and accurately show the Circle A food store when you arrived on scene?
Yes, sir.
At this time, if there's no objection from the defense counsel, the state would ask to move State's Exhibit 9A through D into evidence.
Any objection?
If we could look at it, I apologize. We looked at it earlier, but if I could just see exactly which
You
one.
want to come up and look at all 3 boards?
Please.
All right, so if there's no objection to any of the 3, you can just move all 3 into evidence, and then you can go ahead and publish them and describe what they are and all that.
Yeah, just a second. The state would ask then, since there's no objection from the defense counsel, to move into evidence State's Exhibit 10, A through C, and Exhibits 12, A and B.
All right, and also 9A through D.
Correct, Your Honor.
All right, they're admitted. There's no objection.
May you have the witness step down?
You may.
We're a professional outfit. This is your pointer.
Well, not really professional. I'm going to end up holding it in a second.
There you go. I just pulled it.
All All right, this is State's Exhibit 9, A through D. Top left photographs, that show the front of the Circle A store?
Yes, sir.
All right, and looking at B, is that obviously going to be the side of the store, and that's the handicap parking spot?
Yes, sir.
Looking at any of these photographs, first of all, can everybody see? Okay. Looking at these photographs, just approximately where did you pull in?
Proximity-wise, it's kind of hard to say from that angle that we have here. Pretty much where you see this white Cruiser right here, that's kind of roughly where my vehicle, that may even be my vehicle, I'm not absolutely sure.
Okay, and it's facing the front doors then?
Yes, sir.
All right. When you arrived on scene, were there any other deputies that were there before you?
Yes, sir, Deputy Har.
Okay. And beside Deputy Har, do you know if anyone else was there?
Not initially.
All right. And what did you see when you arrived? What was Deputy Har doing?
When I arrived on scene, Deputy Har was basically standing in the area right here by the front door. He had his side to the door, and he was facing this direction over here towards the handicap spot, but along the front of the store.
And did you see if he was communicating or interacting with anyone?
Yes, sir. He had his gun out of his holster, and he was pointing off at the defendant, who was sitting on the curb pretty much in this area right around here.
Okay. And when you arrived on scene, could you note what the defendant was doing?
Yes, he was sitting down, and as he was sitting down, obviously, as you can imagine, this is a very low seat for him. So when he sits down, his knees are kind of up high, and he has his elbows kind of resting on his knees, having his hands up, trying to comply.
Okay. The person that we're talking about, do you see him in the courtroom here today?
Yes, sir.
All right. Can you just point to him and identify him by an article of clothing?
Yes, sir. He's wearing a light blue shirt with a light blue tie.
Okay. May the record reflect the witnesses identified, Mr. Drejka?
We shall so reflect.
All right. So you saw Deputy Har having contact with the defendant. Did you help Deputy Har in any way?
Yes, sir. I was the one who actually took the defendant into custody.
All right. So you placed handcuffs on him?
Yes, sir.
Was the defendant searched?
He was. After we initially, when I first showed up, obviously he was sitting down, as we would typically do for something like this, especially because of the nature of the crime and the threat of a weapon. I had him prone down on his belly, which basically means I had him lay down, face first on the pavement right there. I placed him in handcuffs, and then we stood him up and searched him and took him over to another cruiser.
Okay. Did you personally search him, or did another deputy search him?
Another deputy actually searched him. About that time, I had him in custody, and we were standing him up. That's when Deputy Smyth showed up on scene.
Okay, and he's the one that performed the actual search?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you see the defendant's vehicle?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you notice where it was parked?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, let's talk about the spots for just a second. In photograph B, you can see the blue painting on the parking stops. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Indicative of a handicap spot?
Yes, sir.
All right. Are you familiar with the traffic laws?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you note the handicap sign that you can see in the picture up top?
Yes, sir.
All right. Just state statute-wise, is that sign a legal sign, so to speak?
No, sir.
All right. And why not?
Basically, the way Florida State statute reads, the sign itself has to obviously have the wheelchair symbol on there, and there has to be some very specific language written on that sign,
Okay.
of which this sign does not have that language.
All right. Now, let's look down at photographs C and D. Do you see the defendant's vehicle in those photographs?
Yes, sir.
All right. And when you arrived at the scene, obviously these photographs are after the scene was secured with crime scene tape, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you can see that there's parking spots available?
Yes.
Did the defendant park his vehicle in a parking spot?
No, sir.
And looking at C and D, is that the defendant's vehicle, that silver four-door car?
Yes, sir.
And next to the handicap spot, you can see a ramp?
Yes, sir.
Right. And this box, is that for the handicap spot?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where the defendant's parked, and I don't want to be the one to point, can you point to the defendant's vehicle in C and D?
Yes, sir. It's going to be the silver Pathfinder.
Okay. That silver Pathfinder, is that in effect also blocking that area?
The way it's positioned right now, it's obviously not going to park, it's not parked directly over the diagonals, of course, but it is going to be in close proximity to where the handicapped access would be.
Okay. I mean, obviously, no one can walk through the defendant's
sir.
vehicle.
No, sir.
Okay. Was he parked in a marked parking spot?
No, sir.
Was he basically parked in the middle of the parking lot?
Yes, sir.
Now, let's talk about what happens when you arrive to a scene,
Okay.
any scene, particularly one like this.
Sure.
What's the job of responding deputies? When you first get to a call like this, can you walk us through the order of how this takes place?
Sure. So obviously when we show up to a call like this, particularly again when we have one where a weapon's involved, our first priority is officer safety, safety of the public, because obviously we don't know what's going on. So, of course, when we first get there, as Deputy Har does, he finds who we have identified, at least via the call notes that we've got, to be the suspect, and obviously get them at gunpoint. Once we secure him, now we've got him secure, so we have the suspect secured, but we also have to worry about any kind of weapons or anything else involved, because if there's a gun, we want to verify that the gun has been located and we know where it's at. Once we've got that scene secure, we then want to obviously now have preservation of life. So we want to have it where we have FD show up, or if deputies are there and they're available to obviously assist.
Since he's testifying in response to a question, maybe he could return to the stand and not stand in front of the jury unless there's more photo reference.
We do have some more photos.
Okay.
So it's up to them where he stands.
Okay. And when you say FD, what's FD stand for?
Fire department.
All right. So you indicated, so you're looking to make sure that the victim is treated?
Yes, sir. So again, we have scene safety first, and then once we do that, now it's preservation of life. We want to make sure the victim is treated. Once we do that and we have FD on there, and again, we have to understand there's multiple deputies that are showing up, so we've got, multiple things that are happening at once. But once we get scene secure, we get FD on scene to treat the patient, now we're going to start looking to see if we can identify any witnesses to make sure they don't accidentally walk off, or they start colluding and obviously got statements that aren't correct. We want to also preserve that scene and identify where the scene's at and rope that area off and make sure that we don't contaminate that scene any more so than may have already happened.
Okay. So when you say rope it off, in B, C, and D, you can see some yellow crime scene tape. Is that what you use to rope off a
Yes, sir.
particular area?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's to prevent members of the public from going into that area?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you have an opportunity to walk around the scene?
Yes, sir.
All right. And once it's secured, is that when you'd walk around?
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, like I said, once our main priority is getting the suspect or make sure the scene's safe, and then after that, now we can kind of calm down and figure out what else is going on.
Okay. Was there a point in time when you were walking around the scene that you located some evidence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What was the evidence that you found?
Because again, initially when we showed up, we didn't know where the actual shooting took place at. We had Mr. Drejka was outside, and we had the victim was laying inside the store, obviously bleeding inside. So we weren't sure if the incident occurred inside or if it occurred outside. So as we start talking to witnesses, we're able to ascertain that it occurs outside around this parking spot as far as the handicap parking. Once we do that, and Mr. Drejka talks about, we ask him where the firearm's at, and we find it, we're able to identify it as a semi-auto weapon. Because of that, we now know there's a shell casing laying someplace outside, hopefully in this area, where the shooting occurred at. So at that point, we start walking around to see if we can identify and find the shell casing, and that's when Deputy Berry finds the shell casing.
Once Deputy Berry finds the shell casing, does he bring it to your attention?
Yes, sir.
Do you mark it with anything?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's the reason that you did that?
Because again, it's a parking lot, it's a very small casing, and again, when we first showed up, we didn't know where the crime scene took place or where the crime actually occurred at. So you had multiple cruisers, you had fire department engines in there, you had Sunstar showing up. So again, this parking lot is quickly filling up with vehicles. So as these vehicles are there, we want to make sure that somebody doesn't accidentally drive over to get stuck inside the tire or whatnot. So we try to mark it and then start moving people away from that scene to verify that it's not going to damage any kind of evidence we found.
This is State's Exhibit 10A through C. What did you use to mark the shell casing that you located?
Initially, again, we're just looking very quickly. I put the little Kickstart Mountain Dew green can next to it just to be more of a highlight to show where it was at. Eventually, another deputy grabbed one of these little cases over here and put it on top of it.
Okay. And then we're looking at State's 10B. That gives you the general idea of where that shell casing was located in relation to the defendant's vehicle and that rectangle spot we were referring to.
Yes, sir.
All right. Did forensic technicians come to the scene?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And just briefly, forensic technicians, what are their duties and responsibilities?
To basically process the scene for any type of evidence, and again, maybe photos, it's going to be collecting evidence, it's fingerprinting possibly, depending on what they've got going on.
Okay. The CSI people that people see on TV, I guess,
Yes,
right?
sir.
All right. This evidence marker, number 1, would that be something that would be placed down by maybe a member of the forensic team?
Yes, sir.
All right. Looking at A and then C, do you see the shell casing in there?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you collect that shell casing or someone else did?
Somebody else did, sir.
All right. And you're not responsible for doing fingerprinting or anything like that, videos,
sir.
photographs? All right. Now, you indicated that someone had spoken to the defendant and either yourself or another deputy about
Yes,
the
sir.
location of the firearm?
Yes, sir. Again, we were just, obviously, he seemed very compliant on scene, so we just asked him very quickly, hey, where's the firearm at? Because while he's compliant now, and obviously we eventually find out where the firearm's at, we just hate to have it where somebody tosses it, and now it's laying in a bush somewhere where a kid could find it or whatnot. So we want to obviously see if we can find where the weapon's at.
Okay. And were you told where the firearm was?
Yes, sir.
All right, and was it in a particular vehicle?
Yes, it was inside the defendant's vehicle.
Okay, so that's the four-wheel vehicle that we already saw in this
Yes, sir, the
exhibit.
Pathfinder.
All right. Did you look inside the vehicle?
I did.
All right, did you actually go inside or just look in the window?
No, sir, just looked inside the window to verify the gun was there.
All right, I'm showing you it's already been admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 12A and B. Do you recognize the object in these photos?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what is the object that we're looking at?
It's going to be the semi-automatic weapon that I found inside the vehicle.
Okay, and looking at these photographs, is this exactly where it was located?
Yes, sir, with
Right.
the slide lock back, just like that.
All right, so this is exactly how it looked?
Yes, sir.
All right, again, you didn't enter into the car to remove the firearm?
No, sir.
Go back to, thank you.
Get back to the point.
Thank you. Were you responsible for conducting any interviews with the defendant in this case, or that was someone else's responsibility?
Again, besides the initial contact I had with him, I had no further discussions with the defendant.
Did detectives from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office respond out to the scene?
Yes, sir.
Right. And did you brief them about what was going on?
Yes, sir.
Right. And that because you were one of the on-scene supervisors?
Yes, sir.
Right. And by briefing them, don't tell us exactly what you said in this case, but what does briefing mean?
Basically, what the supervisor is typically responsible for is that when they show up on scene, especially against something major like this, they're going to go around and figure out who all the people involved are, obviously get their names, kind of get a brief synopsis of how they're involved, identify any kind of locations that are particular to that situation, and then when homicide shows up to the scene, they're going to provide them with all that information. That way, they at least have a basic understanding of who knows what, when, where, and how, so that when they go forth with their investigation, they know how to do that.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Very good.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
When you responded to this call, you were the supervising officer on the scene?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you're a sergeant, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Sergeant Forcade, you arrived on the scene. What was the first thing you observed when you arrived on the scene?
Was Deputy Har and the defendant in front of the store?
Okay, and the defendant was on the ground, you said, seated?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and he was very cooperative, correct?
Yes, sir.
Very compliant with all your requests, correct?
Yes, sir.
Told you immediately where the firearm was when you asked, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he had actually secured that firearm in his vehicle, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And he made some voluntary statements to you.
Yes, sir.
And his voluntary statements included that,
Objection, hearsay.
can we approach?
Yes.
He did give a statement to you, though, at the scene, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And based on that statement, you directed either yourself or others to obtain a video from the store?
I'm not sure if I directed, I'm sure at some point, because we saw there was video cameras outside the store, so I'm sure at some point I directed somebody to check to see if they had video. Yes, sir.
And you interviewed other witnesses at the scene, correct?
Yes, sir. As part of that briefing to try to get the information for the detectives.
Who exactly did you interview for the record?
Is it okay if I look at my
Sure.
notes real quick?
Please
There's
do.
obviously a lot of people. I spoke with the victim's girlfriend, Brittany Jacobs. I spoke with the complainant, Robert Costelli. I spoke with two witnesses, Brittany Hicks and Latoya Wickfalls. I spoke with the witness, Vicky Conrad. And as far as actual witnesses there, those are the only people I spoke to, sir. I eventually spoke with the defendant's wife as well, ever so briefly.
Did you notice that Mr. Drejka's shirt was torn?
No, sir.
You didn't inspect it either way?
No, sir. Again, I was with Mr. Drejka very, very briefly, again, just to get him secured, and then my focus turned to the crime scene, not him.
Was Mr. Drejka handcuffed at the scene?
Yes, sir.
Was he eventually released from those handcuffs?
I'm assuming by somebody, not by me, sir.
No further questions.
State, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Sir, you may step down.
Thank you.
State, please call your next witness.
May I have just a moment? Let's get it.
Swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Sir, just step this way, have a seat before you step up to the microphone and speak in a loud and clear voice for the court, please.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Can you please turn to the jury and introduce yourself and spell your first and last name?
It's Deputy Robert Smyth, R-O-B-E-R-T-S-M-Y-T-H,
And how are you employed, sir?
Pinellas County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been employed with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
About 12 years this month.
Prior to being employed with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, have you been employed with any other law enforcement agencies?
Yes.
What law enforcement agency is that?
I was a Clearwater police officer for 20 plus years.
Okay. I'm sorry, for how long?
20 plus, a little over 20.
All right, and what are your current duties and responsibilities?
I work as a bailiff here in the courthouse.
Easy for you to get here today then, correct?
Yes, I was already downstairs.
Back on July 19, 2018, were you a patrol deputy with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
I was, in fact.
At about 3:30 in the afternoon, did you respond to the Circle A in the area of 1201 Sunset Point Road?
I did.
What was that in reference to?
It was in reference to a shooting.
Were you in a marked police vehicle?
Yes, I was.
Was there anyone with you?
So I believe Sergeant Forcade and myself were talking when the call came out, so he was ahead of me and we responded together pretty much.
Okay, but he was in a different vehicle?
Yes,
All right, so you were by yourself in your vehicle?
yes.
When you arrived on scene, were there any other deputies there beside you and Sergeant Forcade and perhaps a Deputy Har?
None that I knew of. There may have been other deputies that were arriving, but we were pretty much focusing on what was going on.
When you arrived on scene, what was your focus at that time?
Mr. Drejka was, I believe he was sitting on a curb or something, and we went over and myself and Sergeant Forcade secured him in handcuffs, and then he passed him off to me, and I took him back to my cruiser and secured him in the back of my cruiser.
Did you search the defendant prior to putting him in the cruiser?
I did.
And did you see the defendant in the courtroom here today?
It's the gentleman with the glasses.
May the record reflect the witnesses identified Mr. Drejka? Can you explain to the members of the jury how you go about conducting a search?
We're looking for any type of weapons or any contraband that they might take into our cruiser. First of all, it's an officer safety issue, so we don't want them bringing anything sharp or any weapons or anything in the back of a cruiser. So we start usually basically up, and any clothing that they're wearing, we search thoroughly. We turn their pockets inside out normally. We'll search the waistband, the small of the back, any place where weapons or contraband can be hidden.
When you were searching the defendant, did you find a weapon?
I did not find any weapons.
Okay. Did you find anything on him?
I did. I found a magazine for a Glock 40 that had rounds in it. I found a loose round. Those both came out of his right front pocket.
Okay. Did you count out the number of rounds that were in the magazine?
I did. There were 11 rounds in the magazine, plus the one that was loose in his pocket.
May I approach the witness? I'm approaching approaching with State's Exhibit number 6 for identification. Do you recognize State's Exhibit number 6?
Yes,
And what is State's Exhibit number 6?
that's the magazine that I took from Mr. Drejka.
Right. Does it appear to be in the same or substantially same condition as the last time that you had seen it?
Yes,
The loose casing, did you hand that off to someone to package or in any way secure it?
it was an actual round. I believe I did give it to somebody once I got to NDS. I transferred everything over to one of the detectives. I didn't take the casing. If they found a casing on the ground, I wasn't aware of that. I took the actual round out of his pocket.
Right, the actual live round.
Yes.
Your Honor, may I have the witness open up State Exhibit number 7?
Trust me with the scissors.
I will have to. If you wouldn't mind opening up that box. Okay, looking at State's Exhibit number 7, do you recognize the loose round in that box?
Yes.
All right, and is that the loose round that you found in the defendant's pocket?
Yes.
If there's no objection from the defense counsel, the state at this time would ask to move into evidence State's Exhibits number 6 and State Exhibit number 7.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, they're admitted, 6 and 7.
And may I very briefly publish State's Exhibit 6 and 7? You indicated that you counted the rounds that were in the magazine, correct?
That is correct.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 13A through E, but I just want you at this time to take a look at C, actually it'd be B, C, D, and E. Do you recognize this series of 4 photographs?
Yes, I do.
All right. And B, is that the magazine that was just admitted and
Yes.
published to the jury? Looking at State's Exhibit 13C, are those all of the rounds that were in the magazine?
Yes.
And looking at State's Exhibit D, is that a photograph of the loose round?
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about State's Exhibit E, 13E in just a second. What's in 13E?
It's a Black Hawk holster.
Now, in addition to the magazine and the loose round, did you find a holster?
On Mr. Drejka?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
Okay. And once you found that holster, what did you do?
Took it off of his belt and secured it as well.
Okay, so that was actually on him?
Yes, it was on his right hip.
I have already approached you with State's Exhibit number 5, I believe it was. Could you open up State's Exhibit number 5, please?
Certainly. Let me open the bag inside too.
Yes, please. Well, I think the holster is outside of it.
Yeah.
All right, looking at State's Exhibit number 5, do you recognize that item?
Yes.
All right, and you indicated, what is that item?
It's a Black Hawk holster for a semi-automatic firearm.
Okay, and can you show the members of the jury you recall exactly where it was that you found that on the defendant?
On his right hip, right about, am I understand?
Yes.
Right about where mine is.
And looking at State's Exhibit number 5, is that holster in the same or substantially same condition as the last time that you had seen it?
Yes.
Your Honor, if there's no objection from defense counsel, the state would ask to admit this as State's Exhibit number 5.
Any objection?
No objection.
It's admitted.
And may I hand it to the members of the jury?
You may. Members of the jury, any and all evidence that is introduced in the case, you'll be able to take with you back into the jury room when you deliberate, so this won't be the last time you'll be able to view any evidence. All right, any objection to 13A through E?
No, Your Honor.
All right, it's submitted.
May I have the witness step down just momentarily?
You may.
Really just photographs of what the members of the jury have seen, but with respect to State's Exhibit 13B, is that the condition of the magazine when it's fully loaded with all the rounds?
Yeah, well, maybe not fully loaded, but you would see a round in there even if there was just one round. But
Okay.
yes, if it was fully loaded, you'd also see the round.
Okay, and looking at photograph C, you indicated that you had counted out the rounds and given over to a forensic technician, I would imagine?
They were passed off to one of the detectives when I got to NDS.
Okay, and that's just a photograph of the rounds?
Yes.
Okay. And looking at State's Exhibit 13D, that's just a photograph of the loose round that was already passed around?
Correct.
And 13E is just photographs of the holster that was just passed around as well?
That's correct.
All right. I don't have any further questions. Actually, I do have one more, second time I've done that. Did you transport the defendant to the station for an interview?
I did.
All right. But you weren't involved in the detective's interview in any way,
No,
right?
I was not.
Just the transportation over there?
That is correct.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Cross-examination?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Flores.
Good afternoon, Deputy.
Good afternoon.
You arrived on the scene and you saw the defendant, Mr. Drejka, correct?
Yes.
And he was calm when you saw him?
Yes, from what I
He
can
was
recall.
cooperative with you?
Yes, very cooperative.
And at some point, you actually had taken him into custody,
Yes.
and you ended up going to his forerunner where he actually had secured his firearm, no?
No, I did not have anything to do with the firearm itself.
Okay, did you get anything out of Mr. Drejka's pockets?
Yes.
Okay,
The
what
ma-
did you got the magazine, right?
The magazine with the rounds in it and the round
The
itself.
capacity of the magazine is what?
I don't know, I'd have to look at it,
Okay, would you say 13 possibly?
possibly.
Okay, so let me get State's Exhibit 13. How many, in State's Exhibit 13C, how many rounds did you secure from that?
From the
Magazine?
magazine,
Yeah.
11 is what I counted.
11. And then there was one more in his pocket.
That's correct.
That would be consistent with him clearing the live round that was in the gun, correct?
Yes.
Putting it in his pocket?
Yes.
And then the other rounds, he separated from where the gun was not in his pocket.
No, the gun was not in his pocket.
So he was not a threat at that point to anybody, at least not with that firearm.
I didn't know if he was armed.
It would be
at the
impossible
time
for him to
that I
shoot somebody.
contacted, well, I didn't know if he was armed or not.
Okay, got you. But it would be impossible for him to shoot someone without the gun and then all the rounds separated.
That is correct.
Okay. The defendant asked you in the car how Mr. McLaughlin was doing, right?
Hearsay.
Your Honor, you said the question cannot be hearsay.
Okay, the answer is though, but go ahead.
He did ask you how Mr. McLaughlin was, right?
He did, yes.
Okay. You found out that Mr. Drejka had a concealed weapons permit?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you notice that Mr. Drejka's shirt was torn?
I don't recall his shirt being torn.
Okay. Moment, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. You may step down. State, please call your next witness.
Jennifer Hall.
here next to me, please. You stand here, face the clerk, and raise your right hand and take the oath.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Ma'am, if you'll step this way, have a seat, pour yourself to the microphone, and speak in a loud, clear voice for the court, please.
Good afternoon.
Can you please state your first and last name?
Jennifer Hall.
And how are you employed, ma'am?
I'm a forensic science specialist with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you been a forensic science specialist with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
18 years.
And just briefly, if you can explain to the members of the jury, what do you do as a forensic science specialist?
I respond to crime scenes, I document, collect, process, and preserve evidence.
And when you document evidence, what would be a way that you would document evidence?
Photographs or video documentation.
Okay, and although it really doesn't come into play in this case, when you say process, what are some ways that you process a scene?
Process for fingerprints or swab and collect DNA.
Okay, and a way that we always refer to it is there's a show on TV called CSI. Would you be one of the forensic science technicians that does things like we see on CSI?
Yes.
Were you called to the Circle A store in reference to documenting and collecting some evidence regarding a shooting?
Yes.
Were you the only technician that responded, or were there several technicians that responded?
There were several.
Okay. With respect to your duties and responsibilities, when you arrived on scene, were you briefed by anybody, meaning did a detective or a deputy tell you about any evidence they wanted you to collect?
Yes.
And what was the evidence that you were responsible for collecting?
The firearm.
Where was it that you were told, and where did you go to collect the firearm?
It was in the defendant's vehicle on top of the center console.
And was that in the Circle A parking lot?
Yes.
I'm going to show you it's already been admitted into evidence as states 12A and B. You recognize the item in these two photographs?
Yes.
And what's this item?
That is the firearm that I collected.
And did you take these photographs?
Yes.
When you're collecting items of evidence such as the firearm in this case, is there a particular process that you use?
We always wear gloves.
Okay. And you entered into the vehicle?
Yes.
And you used gloves, you picked up the firearm. What'd you do with the firearm once you retrieved it?
I put it in a paper bag.
May you approach the witness?
Okay.
I'm showing it's been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 8. Do you recognize State's Exhibit number 8?
Yes.
Okay. And what is State's Exhibit number 8?
The firearm that I collected.
Is it okay if she removes the firearm from the bag?
Yes.
And I will not be publishing that to the jury to go around. If you could just hold that up. And does that appear to be in the same or substantially same condition as the last time you had seen it? Obviously, the zip tie, which is used to make it safe for court, wasn't in there. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. Other than that, it's the same firearm that you recovered on July 19th, 2018?
Yes.
This time the state would move into evidence State's Exhibit number 8, which is the firearm that was located in the defendant's vehicle.
Any objection?
No objection, Your
It's
Honor.
admitted.
Two witnesses. When you recover an item of evidence such as the firearm, is it brought to a particular location?
Yes, it's brought back to our office.
Okay, and I imagine it's secured at that location?
Yes.
Is that the property and evidence section of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
Our office is not, it's actually next door to the property and evidence section, but I submitted it to the property and evidence section.
I don't have any further questions, thank you.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi. When you arrived on the scene, did you have to secure the weapon? Did you have to secure the gun?
I secured it as in I collected it and put it in a bag.
Did you have to unload it?
No.
Okay. Normally, is that something that you would do if the gun was sitting there loaded?
It depends. I would normally probably have a deputy do it because they're used to handling firearms, whereas I'm not, so.
Okay.
But this one was already unloaded when I got there.
Okay. Do you know the capacity of the magazine of that firearm?
I do not.
Okay. Do you know if there's an active safety on that firearm?
I do not know.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No further questions.
May redirect examination.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Great, thank you, ma'am. You may step down. State, please call your next witness.
Rhonda Klein.
Stand here, face the clerk, raise your right hand and take the oath.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Ma'am, please step this way, have a seat, pour yourself up to the microphone and speak loud and clear voice for the court, please.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hello.
We're breaking until 4 o'clock, and then we'll finish up, and hopefully we'll be able to get you home before rush hour. It seems like the roads are a lot more crowded after school started than they were just a couple weeks ago. So anyway, we'll give you a break until 4 o'clock. Okay, so we've already talked about some of the photographs. One was where the victim ended up going and dying, and there was the bloody T-shirt there. But it wasn't really a photograph of the bloody T-shirt. It was a photograph of that area, and the bloody T-shirt just happened to be there. There were 2 photographs, and I'm allowing one to come in, which is B, but not C, because they were pretty much cumulative. So what was the other issue? Were there any other issues?
No, Your Honor. I mean, other than the jury possibly overhearing our conversations at bench because it's so loud and close, it's because we can hear over here. Will's been able to hear our conversations all the way from that distance, so it's a shorter distance to the jury.
All right, well, we'll may have some super hearing, I don't know. Now, your job is to make sure that they're not able to hear anything.
In defense of that, with having that board at that time was deflecting a lot that I couldn't hear because I don't have anything in this ear and I could not hear clear everything going on. And I tried to keep them a little distracted also.
Right. So part of your job is to distract people, which is something you're good at. All right, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so besides Rhonda Klein, any other witnesses for today?
Well, we could, or we could,
Who else do you have after her?
well, we have Corey Nerzig, FDLE, firearms.
All right, so why don't we do him, and then we'll be done for the day. All right, he's gonna say that the slug or the shell casing matched the gun.
And it was operational, it was functional.
We can stipulate to that, Judge. We don't need a witness.
Well, I mean, if they want to put them on, they have
Well,
the
they
right
have
to do
that
that.
option.
Yeah, we'll put them on.
If they want to stipulate, they can do that too. So you want to put them on?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we'll do those two, and then we'll be done for the day. Is that good?
Yeah, I can release then Mr. Satulo, and we'll do that tomorrow. That's fine.
Okay, all right. So we'll be in recess until 4 o'clock.